Well, hey there, folks. This is Chris McLean, Peak Performance and Transformation Coach, back with another episode of the Peak Performance and Predictable Growth Show, the Peak Performance Show for creative agency founders, owners, and leaders, where we explore the agency journey from the unique perspective of those at the coalface of the industry. My guests help unlock, dissect strategies, tools, and tactics that are working right now to help you deliver better results for your clients and grow and scale your agency to 6 and 7 figures and beyond. And today I have in the studio Jesse from Ooze Studios. And Ooze deliver data-driven, ROI-focused, omnichannel digital solutions through services like B2B lead gen, marketing, e-com shop marketing, website creation, and UI, UX design optimization. Bunch of very, very cool stuff. Some acronyms which you can explain if you're not familiar with them. But a pleasure to have Jesse. Thanks for swinging by, mate.
Hi, everyone. And hi, Chris.
Hello. So take us through Ooze. How what was your career before Ooze? Is this sort of the first business that you've had? What was your history before starting Ooze, and sort of then what led you to specifically sort of moving into that sort of omni-channel digital UX UI space?
Right, yeah. So I actually came out of uni with a maths degree, and basically I didn't know what to do with it. Right, I knew I loved data, I knew I loved business, and then so I spent the subsequent 8 years working for small to medium to large businesses in more the finance and marketing side of things. So I'd either be working in the marketing team, I'd be working in the finance team. Kind of basically just getting my hands dirty, really kind of getting to know businesses inside out. And then moving from that into much more focused marketing position and experience. But that finance and maths background really guided me to be, like, as you pointed out in that description about Ooze, that optimization focus, that data focus, the ROI focus. So everything that kind of came together. Where about 5 years ago, I decided to do my own thing. Now, I didn't quit my job automatically. I did the sensible thing of working 90-hour weeks, doing 2 things at once, so that I could start Ooze with a bit of a bang rather than going cold-faced onto it. Very grueling. I reckon I could have maybe done a bit better in terms of time frame. It was maybe more towards 9 and 12 months. I started to learn, that you need to sacrifice I need to sacrifice your weekly habits to be able to focus on the business. Anyway, so the journey then moves to quitting full-time work and then going full-time with Ooze about 3.5 years ago.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, it's really, like what you said, that's really important just to prioritize, right? Business and life in general really just comes down to it's an elimination game and a prioritization game, particularly like you said, when you're sort of juggling 2 things and you're trying to get a new business up to the level where it at least starts to replace a full-time income from a 9 to 5. It's where do you spend your energy? Where do you spend your time? What activities do you focus on? Can be, very difficult to sort of figure out what are the best things that I can do with those few hours I've got after, come home from work, have a bit of time for my life, and then get back into my new business. What am I actually going to focus on to get that done?
Exactly. The best example that I always fall back on is Elon Musk. Now I know that name is banded around a lot, but it is such a famous and good example of how the fact that we all have the same amount of time, right? No one has more time than anyone else, right? Yeah. It's just he's extremely good at prioritizing. Now, he's also like next level intelligent, but he's extremely good at prioritizing. No one is too busy, right? It's just the fact that the individual has decided to prioritize things in a different way to someone else. That's all that's happened. So we basically we really try and teach that at Ooze that we're never too busy. It's always a case of like, yes, we have a lot of priorities, but we're never too busy to help someone within the organization or the client.
Yeah. And I guess that second part after prioritization becomes leverage. How do you leverage the time to get the biggest bang for buck from every hour that you're working? And that's sort of that next piece, rather than I got more work to do, so I'll just work more time, work more hours. How can you leverage every unit to make it as productive and effective as possible? So that double-headed sword of effectiveness and productivity is prioritization and then leveraging, whether that's through team, through energy and attention, becoming undistracted, all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
So no, I was just going to say, how did you sort of, what tools and resources did you pull onto in that first part of when you were building the business? What was sort of some of the systems or habits or structures you could kind of put around that time to make sure you were able to build that business in your spare time, essentially? And I guess the second part is, now that you're in it full time, how you're applying that same thinking to your own work, but then also, helping your clients.
That's it. So if I was to look back 5 years ago and compare now, like even though 5 years ago I thought I was nailing it, I thought I was doing everything right. Like so like what I'm doing now is so different to what I'm doing then. It's just almost polar opposite. So when I first launched, obviously I was doing it as a bootstrap, so everything had to be lean. So using things like Trello was really handy. Making sure that what else? Because like some people start with money behind them, that they either have maybe other founders with them, so they don't have to do things uber lean, and it takes more time, but it's more cost effective to if you're on your own and you have to do things with these very lean software. But it was all just kind of trial and error. Like I'm a big optimization freak, if anything, and so I optimize everything. I'm very focused on trying to make things as good as possible, whether it's a digital product, my life, my work life, whatever it is. So you also kind of hit a bit of a roadblock in my head is to the exact software I was using. I remember using Trello and email a lot back then. But I know now what I do is I schedule every hour of my day. So I find that makes me incredibly effective. So I actually give myself either half an hour or hour blocks to do a particular task or to work on a particular project, and that makes me really motivated to complete that thing in that given time, and that gives me a boost. That gives me that extra bit of energy, that extra bit of satisfaction, and that's how I make sure that I don't work more than 9 hours. Now, there are some weeks you can't help it, right? There are some weeks that you are going everything's either going wrong or everything's going right, and you just can't help working for hours. So typically, I find that a good standard week with a 9-hour day, including breaks, works when I'm really direct with myself. Like basically, I hold myself accountable. And I find the best way to do that is through a calendar, because I have internal meetings, I have external meetings, and then so that gives me a bit of structure during the week, and then I plan things around it, and I make sure that things are done within those timeframes around it.
Brilliant. And so a lot of that, so the theory behind that is something called Parkinson's law, which you may or may not have heard about, which is essentially the law that a task will expand to fit the time that you allocate to it. So exactly what you're saying, we say, I've got a 30-minute slot, a 1 hour slot. I'm going to get my work done in that time. At that time, it's a hard cut. I'm off and I get into the next thing. Sort of over time, once you get used to that, you find that if you got an hour, the thing will take you an hour. If you give it 3 hours, it'll take 3 hours. So there's sort of this law of Parkinson's law that we tend to, because time's pretty arbitrary, right? Time's sort of, as you were saying, it's an arbitrary allocation. A lot of the times we make assumptions about time. We make assumptions about how long something's going to take, maybe based on past experience, or maybe we just go, I reckon that's going to take a week. But if you put it, it's arbitrary anyway. If you say, well, let's try and do that in a day and see if it can get done. So that when you put those firm bookmarks around things and schedule it and have it in the calendar, and that is the time to get that thing done, you kind of show up and you get into that space and you get the thing done in that time. So it's sort of this a really interesting mechanism for making sure that you are. So that exactly what you were saying, you find that you get stuff done in that time anyway. Is that sort of what you found, that just having that schedule, just say I've got an hour, you get it done in that time regardless?
Absolutely. And also what's interesting, look, is I'm creative more in a sense of ideas. I know what I like in terms of design, in terms of dev, or basically all those different skill sets and outputs. I don't have the initial skill set, but I know what looks good, and I know what will work in terms of user experience. But so I come at it from a different angle, right? I'm more of a business mindset, if you will. But then we have creatives at Ooze, and they have a different mindset, and so it's about trying to adapt the same rules for different people. Nice. I was listening to a podcast recently with Jerry Seinfeld, and obviously even though he's a comedian, he's a writer, and he talks really, really in depth around about the writing process. And if you as a creative, especially writing, which in marketing is used everywhere, right? It is a fundamental tool for marketing. Like if you try and sit down for the first time ever and tell yourself you're going to, write five pages in half an hour, and that's your first attempt, you're setting yourself up to fail, right? If the first time you're going to try this, just set yourself 10 minutes. Just get no distractions, nothing, pen and paper, on a table, on your own, silence, 10 minutes. Just after 10 minutes, walk away and come back to it a bit later and then just review it. And so if you felt that you wrote something good in 10 minutes, well, then next time do 15 and then push it from there, and then do 20 and then do 30. And so, for instance, as we're training our juniors at Ooze who maybe have got copywriting experience, but they're doing a different project or a different medium, we don't just get them to do the whole thing at once. Like we break it down. We turn it into bite-sized chunks so that they don't get lost, but also so they can actually get real self-rewards through the process. The last thing that we want to do is to make them feel negative about the experience. Like, yes, it's hard, but it doesn't have to be so challenging that it becomes this bad experience. Like the creative experience is fun. It's actually a joy. Right?
Yeah. And again, another really, really cool principle that comes out of flow state science is this idea of the flow channel. And what you're talking about there is what we refer to as the challenge skills balance. So you sort of got this sweet spot for ultimate performance. So high performance, peak performance sort of sits in this channel of a flow state, right? And it's this balance between skills and challenge. So often if the challenge is too high, like you're saying, you've never written before and you're going to sit down and write a book or write 5,000 words, but you've never done it before, the challenge is so high compared to your skill set that you get into anxiety and stress and overwhelm. So exactly what you said, they're chunking that down, sort of drops that back into this sweet spot where it's still challenging, but it's within my skill set. Like it's a slight stretch from what I've been capable of. And that literally, that's exactly what you said. That creates enjoyment. It creates that engagement because it's challenging, it's hard, but it's within my wheelhouse still. And then on the other side of that, if your skill set's too high for the challenge, then you get into boredom. So it's sort of finding that balance between, if I've written 5 books and I'm sitting down and my challenge is just to write 200 words in an hour, that's pretty easy, and I'm going to likely procrastinate and just it's too boring. But sit down and write 10,000 words in half an hour. That might be bring me back up into that sweet spot. So yeah. I like what you're saying. I really love that you're bringing that into your onboarding and your training. And you're bringing that there is some a neuroscientific and a scientific backing to a lot of the stuff that you're talking about. So yeah, very interesting that you're kind of naturally doing this stuff. Probably comes out of your mathematics sort of background where you're trying to find that optimization. But I think so. Going back to Seinfeld, I think he wrote like a joke a day or 10 jokes a day or 100 jokes a day or something, like every single day of his life. He literally, whether it was one a day, but that is saying that idea of it's building a habit, right? You're building that muscle. You're doing the thing that you need to do every single day to get better at it over time. So is it a really good reference for writing and just creativity in general? Just always do the thing and build that muscle.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, he's a creative genius, right? Like, you don't create the biggest sitcom in America ever without having some creative genius about you.
Yeah, now, for sure.
You know, and yes, he's not everyone's comedian. For one, he doesn't swear. Some people need swearing in comedy, but he's still an interesting character to listen to.
Yeah. I mean, like as I said, he popularized a show about nothing.
Genius.
And at the time there wasn't really anything sort of like that that style of a sitcom hadn't existed before. But again, he was before he did the show, he was a stand-up for decades before that. So he built that muscle, he built that comedy and the timing and the creativity and the thinking processes to churn out a show like that. So yeah, sort of I guess that shows that when you do this stuff as a habit and you build it and you build it and you stack it and stack it, that's the sort of level that you can get to when you do this stuff regularly.
Nice. He has a big care factor, right? He actually cares about the art form and he cares about the audience. Like if you listen to him, he continually talks about how the audience are your best mate and your worst critic, right? So they're the gauge, right? They are automatic understanding about how good you are. And there's no other profession in the world where you get instant rating and like instant understanding about if you're doing a good job or not. And it's also, and there's that evolution. And so just kind of like, to use for a second, what we do is that we have two focal points. One's well-being and two is results. And so it's not just well-being about our team members and about our individual selves, but about our clients. And so we when you combine that with a very results-driven, data-driven mindset, basically it touches on what we've been talking about, and it really helps create this very, very driven service. So it's not just about a wham bam thank you ma'am. It is like the biggest piece of advice that I can give around a service-based business is well-being should be very much at the top of your priority. Well-being for your team members, well-being for your clients, because like if you're giving them results, if you're giving them what they're paying you for, you're actually giving them well-being, right? You're increasing their well-being. They're coming to you to solve a problem. You're giving them a solution, whether it's through marketing and results, or whether it's through design and some really nice looking websites, lead magnets, whatever it is. Your actual objective is to make them feel better. It is. And so when you combine that with the results, with the data, it becomes a really powerful combination.
Yeah, I really like that perspective. It's a unique perspective. I hadn't sort of thought about that as it's literally a well-being. feeding the well-being of them as humans, because business is all about humans at the end of the day, right? Where they can kind of put this mask on that it's business and it's just this organization thing and it's this external thing, but really it's humans and it's people connecting to people. So yeah, I love what you're saying, that well-being and actually considering the well-being of the client and their business and them as a human is really, really important. And I think something else you sort of said, that idea of sort of being fly by night, wham bam, thank you, ma'am. There are kind of people out there that act like that. But I think in terms of longevity and a sustainable business, to actually embed yourself and have that level of care and concern for your client, that's the next level kind of service. And that's what's going to give you that longevity with that client and not have to go and get new clients every week, every month, but actually groom and stick with that client over time. So do you find that's how you tend to operate now, that you can basically pull more business out of your existing clients and not have to go back to the market all the time to try to onboard new clients all the time?
I know we're continually growing, so like we're always in acquisition mode. So we find that but what we do find is that our clients stay with us for a long time. Like I think our oldest client is 4 years old, which for a creative industry client is a long time. So, and again, that's through that care factor and also results.
And do you maintain that by having, so you've sort of got a good suite of products as well, right? You've got a suite of services and offerings. So you talk about that sort of multi-channel, but then also having multiple services as well. Does that help you sort of extend that client lifetime as well?
Yeah, it does. And look, so I'll be upfront in the fact that I chose a very hard journey for myself, right? If anyone's out there thinking about starting, I recommend niching, right? Find a couple of industries and one or two services and go very deep on that at the start. What we did from the very beginning is kind of be all and end all to everyone. Now that's had its positives. Like during COVID, we weren't affected because we didn't have one particular industry, and that particular industry wasn't affected by COVID. Like we had multiple industries, but it's also meant a lot more stress, a lot more work. So if I could go back and start again, I think I'd probably niche into a particular industry with a particular service, but that's not possible. So I'm very glad to where we've got to now. But I suppose just a piece of advice for anyone starting out, it might seem counterintuitive that you're saying no to work at the start, but the more niche you are, the more profound and bigger brand you can be better. You can become a bigger brand within that niche a lot quicker. And your business actually becomes more sellable because you suddenly have a lot more benchmarks and a lot more industry information, and it becomes a lot more replicable. Did not think I struggled with that word.
No, makes sense.
Whereas with a general agency, but look, having said that though, look, got an amazing team. It just took a bit of trial and error, and very, very happy where we are. But yeah, if anyone's starting out, niche. I think that there's an interesting balance there as well between starting out and immediately kind of niching down. I think if you know that, or you're really into something, if you really love PTs and fitness and training, and that's a niche you love, or cars or something like that, and you want to go into that, I think that can work. But I also think the opposite can work quite well as well, where when you're starting, it is kind of important to be curious about a number of different things. And because a lot of the times we start a business and we kind of know the service we want to provide, but not necessarily the client type. And it can take a bit of trial and error. Maybe I tried doctors, I tried dentists, I tried
auto detailing, I try real estate and sort of see what works best for me and what resonates. So I think that can be a bit of that curiosity and trying a number of different things to begin with can be effective as well. But definitely, I think after that, you niching down makes a lot more sense, because as you were saying, you can be the expert in that space, which becomes really, really important and much more sellable to another client, saying, I am the expert at XYZ. And if you are in XYZ, I can guarantee results because that's what I do every day. So yeah, I think that's an interesting balance.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, because what we do as well is that we do market validation work. So we help businesses understand, is their assumptions actually true? Like, are they, have they got data to back up their business direction? And so it's actually true. There's unless you know, which was actually hard. Like, it's actually hard to know from the very beginning. Is this direction 100% the best way? Like, it's almost impossible to know. But some people, because of their history, as you said, like I have 10 years in cars or 10 years with working with PTs, and it's a perfect alignment. But I'm a big fan of a book called The $100 Startup, and it basically talks about how the fact that you can start a business with $100, and there's also another movement where you can start a business over a weekend, right? Like, it's all about testing. So you've got this assumption. How do you test it without going, pardon my French, balls deep into it? And how do you get that first client without going, without spending tens of thousands of dollars? And there are definitely ways to do it. The thing that I've been thinking about recently, just on this in regards to like a startup journey, is that it's a really interesting. I think you can break this up into stages by looking at how many clients you have. So going from 0 to 1, it is a journey in itself. Then 2 to 10, different journey. 11 to 100, completely different journey, right? And so each of these stages has its own requirements, its own hurdles. And so if I was anyone starting out, that's the way I'd actually break it down. How do I get from 0 to 1? Okay, so I've done that. So how do I get from 2 to 10? Okay, I've done that. So, but actually look at the resources that you require. Don't just look at going from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. Like, start to actually look at the next stage. Like, what does it look like when we have 10 clients? And then, okay, so we've got this. What does it look like when we have 100 clients, or at least we've had 100 clients go through our books? So, because the more vision you have, the easier you'll find it, because the more you can plan into it.
Yeah, I think that's really great. And I think that, again, what's happening there is if you're thinking, I just need 5 clients, that's a different belief system, and that's a whole that's a much more limited set of possible actions that I can take than if I'm thinking about how can I get 100,000 clients, or how can I get 100 clients versus 1,000. The thinking just has to shift. So even if you don't get to that 1,000, you're well ahead of, you're already thinking, as you say, you're thinking that next stage gate, you're thinking about that next iteration, and it just expands your thinking, it expands what you believe is possible, and that opens up just different actions. Literally, it opens up new ways of thinking and new actions that I can take, because now I'm not thinking about how can I get 5 clients, I'm thinking how can I get 5,000 clients. So just that expansion of consciousness happens at that stage, which is really, really cool stuff to bake into your thinking and your strategy.
Yeah, because I'd say that the biggest eye opener was not going from 1 to 2 employees or 2 to 5, but actually 5 to 10. That happened for us quite quickly recently. That would, like, the whole system's changed. Right? Suddenly going from 5 to 10, it means that we're starting to have an actual structure to it, right? It means that me as the owner, like, I'm not across everything. And so suddenly it becomes this really, I suppose, a stronger focus on trust. And a trust in the processes, a trust in the people, a trust in the services and the output. Because I think that's the biggest thing, because it is trust. It's about me putting my trust in the team, and then vice versa, then putting the trust in me to be able to push the organization in the right direction, and to ultimately have that team well-being at the core of what we do. Like for instance, like we have well-being programs running all the time. So like on Monday this week, we started a new one where we noticed that there were so how do I put this? So we started a program called Healthy Me, Healthy Use, right? Corny, but it's memorable within the organization. And so essentially we have a daily motivator. So they basically, what one person is chosen from the team, and they'll motivate everyone to ensure that they don't just stay at their desk hunched over their laptop. They're there to encourage them to do three things: move, stretch, hydrate. Now, these things might sound elementary and basic, but as humans, we forget the basics, and we actually forget good, healthy habits because we're in front of our computer all day long. So just reminding everyone to hydrate, every hour, every 2 hours, because really, I'm 34. I exercise frequently. I need to be drinking 4 liters of water a day, which if I don't, if I leave that to the end of the day, I'm going to feel like a fish in a tank, right? I need to pace it out. And so people do need to, depending on their weight and age, basically, like there's a whole bunch of calculators online. You should be drinking between 2 and 4 liters a day, really. And also the moving and stretching, right? Because we naturally do this with our shoulders as we type and are hunched over our computer, and that causes back issues, neck issues. And so just like simple things like this, where we encourage and motivate others to encourage each other, we find that has a really big impact. Again, basically back to that well-being. Yeah.
Again, I love that you've baked that into your people and really looking at that well-being. As you said, that stuff is easy to do, but it's also really easy not to do. And that's the catch. It's really easy just to sit and say, hunch over, not drink water, not eat well, not move. And over time, that just compounds into either really good habits and really good well-being, or really poor habits and really poor well-being. So I love that you got that baked in, and you're offering that basic stuff that's actually really, really critical and really important for the human. And that's going to have a massive impact on just your team's effectiveness, their enjoyment, their productivity, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, we think so as well. It's working so far. So
I imagine it would be. That's awesome. Really key stuff. Thank you so much for dropping by. As a sort of went into an interesting space, which is always interesting to sort of pick someone's brain and sort of veer off into an interesting conversation. But if people do want to connect with you and find out more about Ooze, find out more about yourself, what you do, come work with you, join your team, whatever that is, what's the best place for them to come and find you?
LinkedIn. We're actually hiring at the moment as well. So especially if you go to our website, to our careers page, or go to our LinkedIn company page, you'll see the job ads there. Come and check us out.
Beautiful. And I'll drop all of those links in the show notes, so you can click on those and go and work for Jesse and get some well-being into your career if that's where you're at and you fit the bill and you're looking for more to be a better human doing what you're doing in your career. Really love what you're doing for your people, for your clients, and for yourself. I'm sure it's going to have a massive uptick and a massive benefit going forward for the sustainability of your people and your business and your clients. Really good stuff. Appreciate you swinging by.
Cheers, Chris. I appreciate your time.
No, thank you. And thanks everyone for tuning in. And as always, we will catch you on the next episode. See you then.